Hi, this is Melanie for the Pardesi channel. I'm here to do a review of the Hindi film Manmarziyaan, directed by Anurag Kashyap. In a word, this film was glorious. Just glorious. It's a love triangle. This is a different Anurag Kashyap than I've ever seen. Now, I haven't seen all of his films. I have not seen Dev D, but this was such a modern, real feeling love triangle story. And I can't help but compare it to the Salman Khan, Ajay Devgan, Aishwarya Bhansali film, Hum Dil De Chuke Sanam. What you need to know about me is that I'm Team AJ. I've always been Team AJ. And I'm very much Team Abhishek. But wow, this film. It was written by a woman. And I can really tell that it was written by a woman. It's an interesting partnership of Anurag Kashyap directing, but not directing his own script. Directing a script by Kanika Dhillon. I love you. I love you, Kanika Dhillon. So she has also written a movie called Size Zero, which was a comedy with Anushka Shetty and Arya a Telugu film that I really enjoyed. This movie is about Taapsee. It's from her perspective, really. And I think she was the best I have ever seen her be. Now, Vicky Kaushal, we all knew was going to be amazing. But oh my God, when I first saw that trailer and I saw how they were styling him. So this setting is Amritsar, and he's supposed to be just this Punjabi guy with this weird haircut and the blue tinged hair. And he wants to be a DJ, and he's just all cool. And our opening scene, we see him in the early morning hours traipsing across rooftops and terraces to sneak into Taapsee's room. This is not a meet cute. We're coming in at the beginning to a full-blown on passionate romance between Taapsee's roomie and Vicky Kaushal's Vicky. And they get caught. And then that brings things to a head. They get caught by her family. And so she's like, okay, then we have to get married, or my family's going to marry me off to somebody. And Vicky is commitment phobic. When she asks him to stand up for her, he doesn't. And so enter in marriage broker, and Abhishek is playing Robbie, a banker from London who his parents have convinced to come home to Amritsar to find a bride. And he is just like this quiet, solid, steady guy. But he's not, he's not a pushover. And I like that about him. He was quiet, he was steady, but he was determined to get what he wanted. And when you first saw Taapsee's picture and Rumi's picture and how different it was, and that she was a hockey player, and then he researches her on Facebook and he sees that she has a boyfriend, and that doesn't deter him. And I thought that was so interesting. This wasn't the kind of plot where he's blindsided by realizing that there's another man. No, he's just determined to marry this girl who looks like she is so full of life and a handful, and he wants that. And, everybody else that they're showing him just looks boring. There's even a scene with him talking to another potential bride, and he's like, do you have any other questions for me? And she's like, what is my name? You can take all the time you want. That was hilarious. This felt so modern. Vicky and Rumi meet on Tinder, and their pledge of commitment is erasing the app from each other's phones. That's the level. We have constant texting. And it shows how Robbie's character is asking to be her Facebook friend. So he's a little bit older, a little bit more with the waiting game. And I just loved all of that. There's so many stylistic things with the music that were amazing. Like there was these twin girl dancers that were incredible. They were doing like these robot kind of moves, but also Indian style to several of the songs. The songs were incorporated in and were just great music. In essence, we have this love triangle. So I'm going to get into some spoilers. If you have not seen the film, please do yourself a favor. Don't go forward. You can kind of probably guess who is going to end up with Taapsee at the end, but don't go forward. Just know that I think this is glorious. I love the film. I'm not saying it's perfect. It has some flaws, but it's just so raw and real feeling, and the acting is so exceptional, especially Taapsee. She blew me away. Vicky I knew was going to blow away, but even more so. He was so hot looking. The passion between the two of them. I mean, it's a contrast between they actually call it fiar, which I guess is a slang term. So yeah, he's like a fiar boy, okay? And just, we hear just in dialogues how he has not stood up for her over time, over and over again, but yet they have this incredible attraction to each other. They have this passion that they cannot deny. And on the contrast, we have Robbie, played by Abhishek, who is just, I wouldn't call him boring, but he is steady. He is mature. He's ready to be married. He is established. He is a grown-up. And just a personal note, some of you saw my Ask Me Anything, but definitely I had a similar kind of choice where I had been with a guy for 2 years and he just wasn't ready to settle down. He wasn't ready to commit. And my husband just was the kind of just solid, steady guy, a grown-up, ready to be together. And that was the contrast. That was the choice that I had too. So I definitely resonated with this movie for me. And, but there's a scene where Vicky and Rumi run away together. And they're eloping. And he's like, well, you asked us to elope. She's like, pull over the Jeep. And she's like, what is your plan? Like, they stop for food and he doesn't even have his wallet. She's like, what are you, like, he's asking her to pay for their lunch. It's like, what is your plan? You don't even have any money. What are we going to do? And Vicky is such a good actor. You could just see on his face, every word that she's saying is hitting him like a blow. And he's so hurt, but yet he doesn't have an answer for her. He's just like, but I love you. Well, that's not enough. That wasn't enough in this situation. Okay, so it's glorious. You have to see it. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. Okay, now we're going to get into some spoilers. So if you've not seen the film, just do yourself a favor. Watch it and then come back. The first half I thought was perfection. The second half, where we're really getting to the relationship with Rumi and Robbie after the wedding. I mean, it's interesting how Robbie loves her so much after only knowing her for a couple of days. That kind of struck me. Like, he just researched her, but they never really show that much time of them being together. He loves her so much, he's willing, even though he knows she's still in love with another man, to marry her. But then it's like Ajay Devgan. He just is so patient and so loving and so steady. Now, this is a movie that didn't shy away from talking about sex, but I came away thinking about, there was one line that Rumi said, so passionate, they're always having sex, and at one point Vicky is like, well, you wouldn't be happy if we didn't do it at least twice a day. But she makes a comment like, well, you only last a minute. And that made me wonder, if it had been a Western film, was there something in the way that, I mean, because it's not like AJ Devgan where he just they don't ever have sex once they're married, because obviously they also have a physical relationship, Rumi and Robbie. So was that part of her thinking? Was he a caring lover? Was he a patient lover with her? Was that part of what? Because really, there wasn't one moment, one thing that he did that was so tender, so over the top, loving to her. It was just the steadiness that he had. But that made me wonder, are we just supposed to read between the lines into something like that? Because I was just thinking, there was never a moment until that glorious walk and talk in the last few minutes of the film. There was, even though I knew where we were going, there were some surprises towards the end, which I loved, that I didn't quite know exactly how things were going to shake out. I loved how the ending was a beginning. It wasn't, it was extremely satisfying. I loved how there was no music. It was just street sounds of them walking and talking, and all those questions that she wouldn't answer when they were married. Then she said all of these things. This is what I love. This, learning about him, because that was the thing. They got married, but they never learned about each other. So I don't know if this film is an indictment of arranged marriage, because it's kind of saying there's two sides of it, right? In a way, you can do it hastily and not know the other person. But on the other hand, it's showing that someone that's willing to go to a marriage broker is serious about settling down and having a marriage. And some of these other relationships, they're not serious. So that is the choice that she's given. Like, do you want somebody that's actually serious about settling down? And I could really relate to that, believe me, from my own life. And that's the thing. We don't have that. You don't know when in the Western world, if you're getting into a relationship, if the guy is really serious. He can be, just giving you a line. I loved the passion that Vicky and Rumi had, but he just, even at the end, when he was trying to grow up, he wasn't ready. And that's what she says to him. You're not ready. You're not ready to be married. Go to your cousins. I loved being your first, our first love, but this isn't to be. So, and I loved that it was her decision. Things didn't just happen to her. It was her decision. Because in the Bhansali film, it's more like Salman gives her an out. I mean, she has come to that realization of almost there of loving Ajay, but it's Salman that kind of is like, no, he's the one that gives the speech. And this one I loved that this writer gave Rumi, Taapsee's character, the speech where she finally makes that decision. I don't know how I feel about her betraying Robbie. I mean, it was like we were waiting for this big confrontation, and I thought Abhishek did really well in that scene where he was just destroyed by thinking that any affection that she had shown him, she was closing her eyes and thinking of Vicky instead. And he was just destroyed by her betrayal of still sleeping with Vicky after they were married. I mean, I think he thought it would take her some time to get over the love and maybe gain affection for him. But her lying to him and sneaking around, that was just it. And I loved that he wasn't just a doormat. He was like, no, I don't want to be married anymore. So much about this film that I loved. Again, those twins, I don't really get it. Maybe somebody can explain it to me in the it was like a motif. We had the male twins at the Kashmir honeymoon. We had the dancing twins who I loved throughout the Amritsar scenes, and I don't know if they had some symbolism or if they were just sort of observers that were always there sort of commenting through their dance. I don't know. But I love this film. It's a little messy, it's like a messy, real love story. It does not all perfect. There's some scenes maybe that I wished had been there. I don't know, just something a little bit more showing how Taapsee was falling in love for Robbie's character. Maybe just, I don't know, but maybe it was just, that was the point. It wasn't one thing. It was all the little things, all the steadiness, all the grown-upness of him. He is just the nicest of nice guys ever. So that's the bottom line. So I loved seeing Abhishek back in the movies. This was great. Vicky Kaushal gives another, he's just going from strength to strength this year. Just so many incredible and varied performances. And Taapsee, this was career best of anything I've ever seen her do. I love how Anurag kind of got out of his wheelhouse and did this love story and put his twist on it because it felt so gritty and real. I mean, nobody, besides being maybe battered by a field hockey stick, nobody ended up, with gunshot wounds or whatever at the ending. It was not like that. And I loved it. I loved that it was, it's like this is the film that Bafekri wanted to be and just wasn't. It didn't have the same raw feeling. And in a way, Kriti Sanan's Barely Ki Barfi character was sort of inching. I love how we're seeing a more modern, real Indian girl who drinks and has sex and smokes and whatever. You know what I mean? She's real. She's real. And she finally gets her own happy ending and her own Prince Charming, but in a real way. So, loved it. Anyway, let me know when you've seen it. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Follow me on Twitter at PardesiYT. Subscribe here to the Pardesi channel. And if you hit the bell, then you'll get a notification whenever I have a trailer reaction or film review.